For the guidelines of this webinar, kindly turn off your microphone while the presentation is going on. Questions will be entertained during the hands-on instruction and the open forum at the later part of this webinar. If you have concerns regarding the presentation or the presenter, please drop your messages in the chat box. E-certificates will be provided for participants who have attended and answered our brief survey at the end of this webinar. For the content, one is what is APA. Second, index referencing. Third, the reference list. Fourth, the reference formats and examples, and then you have the open forum. So what is APA? APA stands for the American Psychological Association. Style provides a foundation for effective scholarly communication because it helps authors present their ideas in a clear, concise, and organized manner. So what are the disciplines that use APA? We have business, health sciences, social sciences. And then APA regulates the style and the language, the document format, and text citation and references. In this webinar, we will focus on text citation and then the references. So this is the manual of APA format 7th edition. If you want to have a copy of this book, you just scan the QR code to download the ebook copy, but the QR code will be given at the end of this webinar. And text referencing the basic. In text referencing, APA 7 is an author's date system. So your in-text references for all formats, book, journal article, web document, consists of the author's surname and the year of publication. So you have here a sample. So you have to include, you have here the author, Bruce and Smith and Bruce, then separated by a comma, and then the year and close open parentheses. So in text referencing, if you quote directly from the author, you need to include the page and paragraph number of the quote in your in-text reference. So include author or author's year of publication, and then the page or the paragraph number of your quote. And then you have to enclose it in a bracket. So you have the sample here. So you have the author's surname, the two authors, separated by a comma, and then the copyright year, comma, and then you have the page number, the pages of the book. In the reference list and its basics. In the reference list, all in-text references should be listed in the reference list at the end of the document. The purpose of the reference list entry is to contain all the information that a reader of your work needs to follow up on your sources. The important principle in referencing is to be consistent. When compiling your APA reference list, you should list references on a new page with a centered heading title References. Include all the references regardless of format. Example, books, journal articles, online sources, in one alphabetical listing from A to Z. Other entries alphabetically by surname of authors. Order rather the entries alphabetically by surname of authors. List works with no author under the significant word of the title. You have to indent the second and subsequent lines, each of the entry, 5 to 7 spaces. Use double spacing. Note that all references in APA end with a full stop except when the reference ends with URL or DOI. An important principle in referencing is to be consistent. Example here, you have the author's surname, then you have the initial name, the initial of the author's name, and then the copyright year in open and close parentheses, then period, and then the title of the article, not indented, not italic rather. Then you have the title of the journal in italic form, and then you have the volume number in italic, and then the issue number, not italic, but enclosed in parentheses. You have comma and the page number and then the DOI. Then we have APA 7th edition reference formats and examples. So APA referencing journal articles. So these are the basic principles in journal articles. So you have a basic reference list entry for a journal article in APA must include author or authors. The surname is followed by first initials, year of publication of the article in the bracket, and then you have the title of the article, and then the journal title in italic. Then you have the volume number of the journal, and then the issue number, and then the page of the article, and then the DOI. Take note that the first line of each citation is left adjusted. Then every subsequent line is indented 5 to 7 spaces. You have here a sample. You have the author's name, surname first, then the initial name, and the copyright year, and then the title of the article, and then you have the title of the journal in italic, and then the volume number is italic, and then they have the issue number in bracket, and then they have the page number, and then the DOI. For single author, so you have in-text direct quotation. So you have to write the author's name separated by a comma with the year of publication and the page number, enclosed in open and close parentheses, period. So in the reference text, so you have to write the surname of the author and the initial, and then the year of publication, then the same procedure, the same format with the first sample. Take note that when there is a DOI is available, it must be included at the end of the reference, like this format. So what is a DOI? DOI is a digital object identifier. It is a unique permanent identification number that will take you straight to the document no matter where it is located on the internet. DOIs figures prominently in the APA 7th edition referencing style, and where a book, journal report, or publication has DOI, it must be included in the reference. DOI must always be presented in this format. So for journal article with 2 authors, so you have to cite both authors each time the reference occurs, like this sample. So you have the author, surname of the author, and then the year. Okay. And the reference list, you have to write You have to cite the two authors with the initial and the year, and then the title of the article, and then the title of the journal in italic form, and then the volume number, and the rest of the information like the previous one. So for journal articles with 3 to 20 authors, in text, you have to cite the first author and the word et al. Et al refers to the Latin word for others. Cite only the surname of the first authors followed by et al and the year. So you have the sample here. So for the reference text, provide the names of all the authors in the reference list. So you have here all the authors, then the year, and then you have the title of the article journal, and then you have the volume number, and then the number, and then the page number, and then the DOI. So the same format. So in journal article with 21 or more authors, you have only to cite the surname of the first author followed by et al and the year. You have to include the page number, like this sample. In the reference list, provide the names of the 19 authors. Insert ellipses, but not ampersand. Then add the final author's name. So like this sample, you have the surname of the author first and their initials. And then you have the title of the article, and then you have the issue number, the volume number, and the issue number, and the page, and then the DOI. So for journal article from most the library database with no DOI, so you have in text, you have to write the author's name followed by the year, and then the direct quotation, and then followed by the page number in close and open parentheses. In the reference list, you have to write the two authors. You have to write the name of the author's surname, and then the year, and then the title of the article, and then the rest of the information, the same format with the previous journal citation. So an article retrieved from most library database does not have DOI, and then they can be used, presented as it is in the printed article if they didn't have DOI. So for print journal article with no DOI in text, you have to cite the direct quotation, and then the author separated by a comma for the year of publication, and then enclosed in open and closed parentheses. In the reference list, same, you have to write the author, and then the year of publication, and then the title of the article, and then you have here the title of the journal in italic. Take note that the title of the journal is italic, and then the volume number is also italic, and then the issue number is not italic but enclosed in parentheses, then comma, and then page number. So take note that where a print journal article has no DOI, you must include it, even though you did not access the electronic version. So online journal article with no page number. So in text, you have the authors, the direct quotation, then you have the author's name, et al, author's surname, then et al, then separate by a comma, and the year of publication, and the page, and then the paragraph section. And then for direct quotation online material without pagination, name the section and the paragraph number. So so in the reference list, you have to write all the authors, and then you have the copyright year, and then the title of the article, and then the same procedure. The title of the journal is italic. You have +1, and then the rest of the information like the previous sample that we have. But you have to include the DOI because this is an online journal. So for APA referencing books, we will now go to books. So a basic reference list entry for an ebook that you have retrieved from a library database with no DOI in APA format must include author or authors. The surname is followed by first initial, year of publication of the book in round bracket, book title is italic, then the edition, if there is any, and then the publisher, and then you have the DOI for all works that have one, regardless of whether you must use the online version or printed version. And then you have the first line of each citation is left adjusted. Even every subsequent line is indented 5 to 7 spaces. So we have a sample here. We have the surname of the author, and then the initial name, followed by the copyright year enclosed in open parentheses, and then the title of the book in italic, and then the publisher's name. So note that an ebook retrieved from an academic database does not have a DOI. It's referred as though it is in a printed version. For book with single author with no DOI, so in text you have the direct quotation, and then the author is enclosed in open and closed parentheses, author's surname first, separated by a comma, then the copyright year and the page number. So you have to add the page number from the direct quotation, or direct quotes rather. And then you have in the reference list, you have the surname of the author, the same procedure. And then you have the copyright year, and then the title of the book is italic, and then the publisher. Book from the web with single author with no DOI. So you have in text here, a sample, the direct quotation, and then you have the author's name, and then same procedure with the first sample, the copyright year and the page number. So you have here a sample in the reference list. You have the author's surname. So they have the same with the previous one. Only you have to add the DOI. So if the URL jumps down in a line, leave it. Do not break the URL across the lines, as this will stop the link from working. So for book with two authors and edition. So in text, you have to write here, according to Moran and Toner, enclose in open parentheses and close parentheses, the copyright year. You have to cite both authors each time the reference occurs. In the reference list, the same. You have to write the two authors with their initial and the year of publication, and the title of the book is italic, and then you have the publisher. The edition number is included after the title of the work, not necessarily the first edition. So for books with 3 or more authors with no DOI, you have in text here, the direct quotation. Then you have to write the first author's or name, followed by et al., comma, with the copyright year and then the page number. Same procedure with the previous one. And then where there are more than 3 or more authors, cite on the first author's or name, followed by et al. So in the reference list, provide the names of all the authors in the reference list up to and including 20 authors. So in here you have the sample, you have to write the authors, then the year. So then you have the title of the book, italic, the publisher, and then the DOI. Then take note that for book with 20 or 21 or more authors, follow the same author format for the journal title article, katong with 21 authors or more. For book reference work like encyclopedias, like dictionaries. Then you have sample here. You have in text, you have to write the author, and then surnames of the author, then it al, and then the year, and then the direct quotation. Then you have here the sample, the reference list. You have to write the author or the editors of the reference work, and then followed by the title of the reference work, and then the in italic. This is a book, a dictionary, and then followed by the publisher. Period. Book with diagnostic manual for manuals. So in text, you have here the title of the direct quotation, and then you have the publisher, you have the manual's number, and then you have the publisher and then the year of publication. So it is common to identify the full title and edition of the diagnostic manual along with the abbreviation the first time you cite in your text. Subsequent citation can refer to the abbreviation. So note that the use of the title case and italic for the title and abbreviation. So in the reference list, you have to write the author, the American Psychiatric Association, then the year, and then the title of the manual book, and then the edition in close and open parentheses, like the copyright year, and then you have to write the URL or the DOI. Book with editors. In text, you have here the direct quotation, or the, and then you have to write the editor's name or name first, followed by it al, and then comma, and then the year in close and open parentheses. In the reference list, you have to write with more than one editor, follow the multiple author format of the above and use the same editors. So you have to write the surname of the editors, followed by their initials, and then the title of the book in italic, and then the publisher, and then the DOI or the URL. For book with author or an editor. So in text, you have the direct quotation. You have here the author's or name. Then you have the first copyright year represents the original work published. Then the second one represents the author's the book being edited, the year it is edited. And then the page number. And then so it is included in here the original publication date of the citation. So you have in the reference list, you have Austin, you have the author, and then the copyright year, 2005, it is the year it is edited. And then you have here the title of the book, and then you have the editor's name in close and open parentheses. Take note that in the editor's name, it is the initial name, the first name comes first before the surname. And then you have the publisher and then the date of the original work being published. So in the publisher, in the editor's work, it is then in natural order. So in the chapter or part of the book which the number of authors have contributed. So you have here the sample in text. You have the author's name and then the year, in close and open parentheses. And then you have the quotation, direct quotes. And then you have the page number of the part of the book. And then you have here the author's name in the reference list. You have the author's name, followed by the initial, and then you have the year, and then you have the part of the book, and then the editor, and then the title of the book, and then you have the DOI. Don't forget the page number. It is enclosed in open and close parentheses, and then you have the publisher and then the DOI. Take note that the editor's name appears in the initial first and the surname follows. Book with translator and authors. So you have here in text, you have the author's name, then the year of the original work that is being published, and then the year when it is translated. So you have here, in the reference list, you have the author's name, surname first, then the rest of the information. What is different? What is the difference that you have to write here that translator's name in natural order, surname, the first name followed by surnames, and then the rest of the information. Then take note. You have to take note of the date of the published year, original published year of that book. For book with anonymous author, so you have to write you have to use only the work of authors designated as anonymous, include the word anonymous followed by a comma and year. So you have that in text sample, and then the reference list, you have to write anonymous period, and then you have the year, and then the title of the book, and then the edition enclosed in open and close parentheses, and then the publisher. In the reference list, include such title as the alphabetical listing as if anonymous were the true name. For books with multiple works of same author. So you have here the sample. You have the author's name. You have the direct quotation and the author's name, comma, then followed by, you have two copyright year, 2018 and 2020, because he has published two books. So what in the reference list, you have to write first the first book that he wrote. You have the author, you have the same procedure. You have the author's name, surname, and then the year, and then the title of the book, and then the edition, and then the copyright year. So and then you have to follow it, the latest one. It is a chronologically arranged. Then you have here the same author, and then you have the year 2020, and the title of his book, and then in italic format, and then you have the copyright year. So order multiple works by same authors by year of publication, earliest first. For classical or religious textbook. So for like in the Bible, you have here a sample in text. Then where parts of the classic or religious text are numbered consistently across all editions, use the numbers rather than page number. Okay, in the reference list, you have to write here the Bible title, and then the year it is published recently, and then you have the URL, and then you have to write also the original work it is published, the year it is published originally. So where the original date of publication is known and undisputed, include it. If the date of the publication is only approximate, known is abbreviation, you have to write the abbreviation CA or for circa. So let's now proceed to the next topic, which is for newspapers. So AP referencing for newspapers. Maybe some of you will use newspaper as your reference in your research. So the basic in reference or list entry for newspaper article retrieved online. So author or authors, then you have the surname is followed by either initial. So year and publication date. the article title, then the newspaper title in italic, and then you have the page number if available, and then the URL. Take note, the first line of each citation is left adjusted. Every subsequent line is indented rather in 5 to 7 spaces. So you have your sample, you have the authors of the article in the newspaper, you have the surname, followed by the initial, and then the year and the date of issue, and then the title of the article on the newspaper, and then the title of the newspaper in italic, and then you have the URL and the DOI. So more or less the same lang mga samples. Make sure that as many newspapers daily publication, the date of newspaper must be included. Don't forget the date of issue, like May 22. And then it is enclosed in open and close parentheses. For newspaper on the web, so you have here in text, you have here the author, and then you have the year, and then the quotation. In the reference list, you have to cite the author's name, surname first, followed by their initial, and then the year, and then the date of issue, in close and open and close parentheses. Take note that the year and the date of issue is separated by a comma, and then the title of the journal article, and then the title of the journal, the title of the newspaper is italic, and then the DOI. So if an article already contains a punctuation, such a single quote around just not bland, in the example, retain this in your reference. For a newspaper from the library database, in text, you have the direct quotation, and then you have the author's surname, and then the same procedure, the same format, separated by a comma, and then the year in close and open quotation. And then in the reference list, you have the author's surname, and then the year of publication and the date of issue in close and open parentheses, period, and then the rest of the information. So take note that in the newspaper article retrieved from a database can be referenced as though it is in the printed version. Newspaper print. In text, you have the author, and then the copyright year, and then the direct quotation, and then add the page number for direct quotes, no? In the reference list, the same procedure. You have the author, and then the year, and then the date of issue, and then the title of the article, and then the title of the newspaper, and then the page number. If the article appears on discontinuous pages, give all the pages numbers and separate the numbers with a comma. For newspaper article with no author, so you have your sample, direct quotation, then they have the year of publication. Then use shortened title or full title if it is short. In the headline case, enclose double quotation marks. And then in the reference list, you have to write the title of the article, and then you have the copyright year, and then the date of issue, and then the title of the newspaper, and then the page number. You have to use the first word of the title. Palis ako balik, Lynn. Use the first word of the title to place the reference in the alphabetical sequence in your reference list. For newspaper article from a separate pagination section, you have here the in-text sample, same procedure or style. You have the author's name, surname, and then the year of publication and the page number. In the reference list, you have the author. So you have the same procedure here. Just take note that green guide before the page number is indicate a separate pagination section in the newspaper. It is separated by a colon. So let's move on to thesis. So some of you will be using thesis in your reference as your reference. So the basic of a reference list entry for a thesis or dissertation. You have the author surname is followed by first initials, year in round brackets, title in italic, level of thesis or dissertation in square bracket, then the university also in square bracket, and then the year, the following directly after the line, the level of the thesis, example, doctoral dissertation, then you have Victoria University, and then you have the database or archive name, and then the URL, and then take note that the first line of each citation is left adjusted. Every subsequent line is indented 5 to 7 spaces. We have our sample. We have the author's surname first, followed by the initial, and then the year of publication in close and open and close parentheses. Then you have the title of the thesis or the doctoral dissertation. Then you have to indicate that it's doctoral dissertation, and then the university, Victoria University, and then the archives, the Victoria Research University Research, this archives, and then you have the URL. Then for the institutional repository, so you have the in-text example, and then you have the reference list. You have the same procedure. You have the author's surname. Then you have the copyright year in close and open and close parentheses. And then you have the title of the thesis, dissertation, then the university where it is written, and then you have the repository, and then the URL. For commercial database, this is for databases like ProQuest, Emerald, Insight. So if you quote from this, we have a sample here. So in text, you have here, you have the author's surname, and then separated by the comma with the copyright year. In the reference list, you have the author's surname, then you have the copyright year, and then the title of the dissertation in italic. And then you have here the publication number. Then you have to indicate the doctoral dissertation in what university, and then the database, the ProQuest dissertation and thesis global. Note, the inclusion of ProQuest publication number is in a round bracket between the title and the thesis description. ProQuest dissertations and theses are only available in this database. So the database name is included as a source. So thesis from the web. So you have here a sample in text. You have the author's surname and then the year, and then the title. And then you have here in the reference list, you have the author's surname, and then the copyright year, and then the title of the thesis, and then you have the publisher, and then the publisher, and then you have the URL. So take note, if the author's first name is hyphenated, as in Xiu-Fing Chow above, retain the hyphen and include the full stop after its initial but no space rather. For web pages, so what are the basic things that we should remember? So in the basic reference list entry for web page on a web page or website for individual author, you write the author or author's surname is followed by his first initial, year, month in round bracket. Use the exact date if possible. Then the title is italic, and then the website name, and then the URL. And the first line of each citation is left adjusted. Every subsequent line is indented 5 to 7 spaces. So we have our sample. We have the author's surname and the year and the date of issue, and then the title of the article on the web, and then you have here the publisher, and then you have the URL or we have the website name. Web page on a website with the individual author. So you have here the direct quotation, and you have the author's surname. On the same procedure, you have the comma and then the year. In the reference list, you have the author's surname followed by the title of the article on the web, and then the URL or the web page. Take note that the title is already contained in the punctuation, such as the double quotation or quote in the above example. Retain this in your reference. For web page on the website with group author or no date. So you have your sample in text, you have the association or the group, and then ND stands for no date. In the reference list, you have to write the association, and then there you put in the N period, D period, then the title of the article on the web, and then the URL or the web page. Then use abbreviation in period, D period for no date in place of the year of publication. When the author and the site name are the same, omit the site name. For web page with retrieval on the required date, so you have here the index sample, and then for the reference list, you have to write the author, and then ND for instead of year, and then the title of the article, and then the retrieve date, and then the URL. Use ND in place of the year and include the retrieval statement for any web page where the content are continuously updated and not archived. Where the author and name of web page are in the same, omit the site name. Web document for an organization with an author. So you have to, in text here, you have the sample, you have the name of the organization separated by the copyright year. So in the sample, in the reference list, you have to write the organization followed by a period, and then the copyright year, and then the title of the document in the web, and then you have the URL or the DOI. So for Word document with no authors, you have in-text sample here. Then when a work has with no identified author, cite the in-text first word of the reference entry, usually the title and the year. If the title is italicized in the reference list, also use italic in the text citation. Use title case in the text citation even though sentence case is used in reference list. So you have the sample here. So for blog post and comment. In text, you have here the sample. You have the author's surname, separated still by a comma, and then the year. In the reference list, you have to cite the author's surname. Then you have here the year and then the separated by a comma with the date of issue. And then the title of the post. And then you have the URL or the